According to our President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the amount of investments that we are targeting in the infrastructure space is 5 to 6% of GDP between 2023 to 2028. Now, there are two big infrastructure departments in the Philippines. That's the Department of Public Works and the Department of Transportation that utilizes government financing for infrastructure investments. And at least for the Department of Transport, our target is to be able to contribute within that 6 years a total of 35 to 40 billion euros across our four operating sectors. That would be our aviation and airports, that's our maritime and ports, our railways, and our road infrastructure. So that would be investments coming from the government, financed by the government, and does not yet factor in investments that we are facilitating from the private sector through public-private partnerships. So we are building more, as our president has directed the Department of Transportation in doing. And we hope that part of that pipeline that we are developing is going to be filled in by our Spanish partners. Some of our flagship projects, according to our operating sectors, would of course be for the aviation sector, the modernization and capacity expansion of our current international gateway airport, the Manila International Airport, which we intend to do via public-private partnership. We are also working on new or additional international gateways in Manila, which are the Bulacan International Airport and the Sangli International Airport. And aside from our international gateways in our capital, we are also working on currently an initial set of 9 regional airports through public-private partnerships where Spanish capabilities can play a big part in. So that is in aviation and airports. In maritime, we are particularly working on updating our national port development strategy for the purpose of enhancing our food logistics network. And incidentally, as we have been coordinating with the Department of Energy to also support the expansion of offshore wind farms in the country. The Philippine Coast Guard, which is an attached agency to the department, is another area of priority, area of focus for investments. And we are working with them for the purpose of expanding their various operating assets, from their floating assets, their aerial assets, as well as their operating bases. And again, on this, we are exploring potential partnerships with Spanish counterparts. Of course, in railways, we have a huge railways pipeline and an even bigger pipeline coming after that. There are Spanish companies that are already involved in that space and that are very familiar with what's happening now and what's coming. We have ACCIONA, we have IDOM, we have CAF as some of our Spanish contractors in the railway sector. And we are looking forward to seeing other Spanish companies play in that field as well. And of course, finally, in the road transportation sector, we are ongoing the modernization of our land-based transport systems and buses, or the upgrade of our current fleet of traditional jeepneys into higher efficiency, greener modes of transport, such as electric buses and cleaner versions of diesel buses, is something that we believe we can also explore and pursue with the relevant Spanish counterparts. So these are some of the projects and priority investments in our pipeline and that we wish to explore together with the Spanish government and the Spanish business sector. Currently, from the set of Spanish companies that we are working with, we are happy to note that there is good partnership between the Philippines and these Spanish companies. Again, particularly in the railway sector, we are already working on a number of projects with them. And one of the objectives that we have is to expand the areas of partnership beyond railways into aviation, ports, the Coast Guard, as well as the road sector as well. But frankly, At this time, we would say that we are not yet that familiar with the entire breadth of capabilities and companies and expertise from Spanish industry, and this is something, this knowledge gap from status quo is what we wanted to address in forums like this that we are having now. Public-private partnerships are going to be focused on in the next 6 years. One thing that the way that we think about public-private partnerships, it's not an either or. We do not have to choose between utilizing private sector financing and government or development partner financing in our projects, because quite frankly, the investment gap, the infrastructure gap that we have would require us to mobilize all available sources of financing and expertise that there is. So the strategy for the next 6 years is to optimally diversify our funding mix for our various projects, and that would include mobilizing or utilizing our traditional sources of financing from our official development partners, as well as from our government partners through export credit or other concessional financing arrangements, but at the same time also maximizing the extent to which we are able to encourage and facilitate private sector financing in our infrastructure space. So again, it's not so much as which one are we focusing on. The focus is to close the gap. And in order to close that infrastructure gap, we have to utilize both private sector and government sector sources of financing, both locally and internationally as well.